You have to eat 8 oranges today to get the same vitamin A your grandfather got from one. How did real nutrition vanish from our food, while chemical fertilizers just kept selling us the illusion of empty health? The secret traces back to a single scientist who, on his deathbed, admitted he had sinned against the Creator by reducing soil's needs to 3 elements, creating a subscription model. Big Ag never wants you to question, but if the industry story is a lie, what is the solution, and why has it been buried for 100 years? The answer is written in stone, and the industry hates it. In 1840, a German chemist named Justus von Liebig published a book that changed the course of agriculture. He argued that the secret to plant growth was not the mysterious power of rotting leaves or manure, but a handful of minerals: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. This idea, known as the law of the minimum, swept through Europe's fields and factories like wildfire. Within a decade, guano ships crossed oceans, and superphosphate factories sprang up across England. The promise was seductive: bigger harvests, faster growth, a scientific shortcut to plenty. Liebig's formulas became gospel. Farmers, desperate for yields, abandoned ancient cycles and natural fertility for sacks of white powder. But the story did not end there. As the years passed, cracks appeared in Liebig's theory. Early fertilizers failed in the field, crops withered, soils soured, and the promised bounty faded. Liebig, never one to ignore evidence, returned to his laboratory. He saw that plants needed more than just 3 elements. His own experiments revealed that harvests stripped the land of dozens of minerals: potash, magnesium, calcium, and others, leaving the earth weaker with each passing season. In the preface to his later editions, he warned that yields soon plummeted, worse than before. Toward the end of his life, Liebig's stance softened. He admitted that his early vision had been incomplete. In a rare moment of humility, he wrote, "Perfect agriculture cannot be formed without scientific principles." The law of the minimum, once a tool for progress, had become a trap. It was too simple. It ignored the full spectrum of life in the soil. The industry, however, had already taken his reductionist model and built an empire on it. Factories kept churning out NPK blends, and the annual cycle of purchase and depletion became the new normal. The confession, whether whispered or written, was buried under a mountain of profit. But the record stands. Liebig, the architect of chemical agriculture, became its first and most honest critic. For a moment, the world had a chance to listen. I had sinned against the wisdom of the Creator. In my blindness, believed that a link had been forgotten. Silence that followed would echo for generations as fields grew green but empty, and the real code of the soil was quietly erased. Factories did not just feed the fields, they fed themselves. In 1841, just 5,000 tons of guano entered British ports. By 1846, that figure hit 220,000 tons. The price of Peruvian guano fell by half in 6 years, not because the supply grew, but because the hunger for it became insatiable. The real windfall was not in the land, it was in the ledger books. John Bennett Laws, who patented superphosphate in 1842, scaled up from a single plant to a network of factories. By 1860, the United Kingdom alone was producing over 100,000 tons of superphosphate a year. 40 years later, more than 200 factories across Europe and America were churning out millions of tons annually. But this was no one-time fix. Soluble NPK, the white powder that promised plenty, vanished with the first hard rain. Farmers found themselves locked into a cycle: apply, harvest, watch the soil fade, buy again. Agricultural journals in the 1850s warned that superphosphate exhausted the soil quickly, and that guano lasted only a season. By 1870, British farmers spent £4 million a year on fertilizer, with 80% of that money guaranteed to return to the same companies the next season. In the United States, the Guano Islands Act of 1856 formalized the rush, and by the Civil War, American farms were importing up to 50,000 tons a year, just to keep up. The industry sold dependency. Laws's own advertisements warned that one application was insufficient, and that farmers should reapply yearly. Factory owners watched their profits climb with each passing season, as fields grew more addicted to the fix. The more the soil was stripped, the more desperate the farmer became. The subscription model was born, not out of scientific necessity, but out of economic opportunity. Recurring sales, annual contracts, and a customer base that could never walk away. The factories multiplied, the ships kept coming, and the soil's natural memory faded with every sack. The logic was simple: sell a solution that never solves, and you own the future. The question was never about feeding the world, it was about feeding the machine. Long before factories and shipping lanes, the earth had its own way of feeding the soil. Every glacier that crawled across a continent was a grinding machine, crushing mountains into a fine powder. As the ice melted, it left behind a blanket of mineral-rich dust. Rain and wind carried these particles across entire valleys, settling them into every crevice and field. Volcanoes played their part too, hurling ash and rock into the sky, only for it to rain down and mingle with the soil. These natural events happened on a scale that dwarfs anything modern agriculture could attempt. In just a single glacial advance, a landscape could receive hundreds of tons of fresh minerals per acre. Over thousands of years, this slow-motion rock grinding was relentless. The result was soil loaded with every element plants could ever want: calcium, magnesium, iron, and a spectrum of trace dust that never made it onto a fertilizer label. But the story didn't end with the dust settling. Below the surface, a hidden workforce took over. Microbes, billions in every handful of healthy soil, woke up to the banquet nature had prepared. These microscopic chemists broke down the raw minerals, unlocking nutrients and making them available to roots. Fungi stretched their hyphae like underground pipelines, ferrying elements from stone fragments to plants. This partnership between geology and biology built the original fertility of the world's great breadbaskets: the black soils of Ukraine, the prairies of North America, the volcanic fields of Java. For millennia, every harvest was quietly replenished by the next pulse of glacial dust or volcanic ash. There was no need for annual inputs. Nature's system was slow, but it was thorough. Each cycle of weathering and microbial release kept the mineral bank full. The end of the last ice age changed everything. Glaciers retreated, volcanoes fell silent. The steady drip of new minerals stopped, but the harvests continued. Over generations, the soil's reserves dwindled. Crops pulled up what was left, year after year, and nothing replaced it. The land was still dark and crumbly, but the invisible wealth, the trace elements vital to plant and human health, began to vanish. By the time chemical fertilizers arrived, most fields had already slipped into a slow, mineral famine. What followed was not just a change in farming, but a break in the ancient contract between land and life. The natural mineral feed was gone, and with it, the foundation of true soil fertility. Plants are living chemistry sets, but the formula pushed by industry left out the most important ingredients. NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, drives fast, shallow growth. What it cannot build is strength. The key is silica. In natural soils, silicon forms the backbone of every stalk and blade, woven into cell walls like rebar in concrete. Without it, stems buckle, leaves droop, and the plant becomes an open invitation to pests and disease. Silica does not just keep a tomato upright, it builds the armor that keeps insects out and water in. Modern fertilizers supply none of this. The result is crops that look healthy for a season, then collapse at the first sign of stress. But silica is only the beginning. Plants run on a cocktail of trace elements: copper, zinc, magnesium, boron, and dozens more. Each one is a switch in the machinery of life. Copper sparks the enzymes that keep leaves green. Zinc unlocks growth hormones and immune defenses. Magnesium sits at the heart of every chlorophyll molecule, capturing sunlight itself. Boron guides the flow of sugars and calcium, shaping fruit and seed. Miss one and the whole system stutters. The leaves yellow, fruit shrivels, and the plant's defenses vanish. These are not exotic minerals. They are the raw code of the earth, present in every handful of glacial dust or volcanic ash, but stripped from fields by years of harvest and chemical shortcut. Dr. Elaine Ingham, a soil microbiologist, calls these elements the keys to the engine. She has spent decades tracking what happens when soils run out of trace minerals. Her verdict is blunt. Feed the soil food web, not just the plant. When microbes are starved of minerals, they cannot unlock nutrients for roots. The entire cycle grinds down to a halt, no matter how much NPK is dumped on top. Rock dust, ground basalt, or volcanic ash restores this missing spectrum. It does not just add nutrients, it reboots the soil's biology, giving microbes the fuel to rebuild the entire system from the ground up. What is missing from the fertilizer sack is everything that makes a plant truly alive. The difference is not subtle. Crops grown with a full suite of minerals stand tall, resist drought, and shrug off pests because their cells are built on real structure and their metabolism runs clean. NPK grows bulk. The missing minerals build health. The proof is not in the label, it is in the plant itself. Rock dust is the missing code. A pocket refractometer is a simple tool, a few drops of juice, a pointer, and a number that reveals what the plant is really made of. In the hands of a farmer, it turns the invisible world of minerals into a hard measurement. The number is called Brix. It's not a guess or a feeling. It's the percentage of dissolved solids, mostly sugars and minerals, inside the sap. High Brix means the plant has drawn up everything it needs from the soil. Low Brix means something is missing, even if the leaves look green. A tomato grower in the Midwest decided to test his soil the old-fashioned way. Before applying any rock dust, he squeezed the juice from a cherry tomato onto the refractometer. The reading was 3 degrees Brix. That is the kind of number you would expect from a supermarket fruit: watery, bland, and quick to rot. He sprinkled basalt dust over the bed, watered it in, and waited. After 3 months of regular sun and rain, he tested again. The new reading was 11 degrees Brix. The difference was not just on paper. The tomatoes were firmer, sweeter, and stayed fresh longer. Brix is more than a flavor score. It's a window into the plant's mineral bank account. When the soil is loaded with trace elements, magnesium, zinc, boron, copper, the plant's chemistry changes. Sugars and minerals flow together, building the compounds that give real food its taste and resilience. The jump from 3 to 11 is not rare. Gardeners across climates have seen similar leaps after a single dusting of rock powder. In apples, potatoes, even lettuce, the story repeats. Low Brix before, high Brix after, and a crop that suddenly resists stress. The refractometer does not care about brand names or fertilizer labels. It delivers a number, plain as day. For decades, the industry told farmers to trust the bag. Now the proof is in the juice. Anyone can run this test. A few drops, a quick glance, and the truth about your soil is staring back. The next question is, what happens to the plants when those numbers climb? That story is written in the fields, where pests and diseases make their choices, and where mineral-rich crops begin to disappear from the menu of every insected site. Dr. Philip Callahan, an entomologist who spent decades studying plant-insect interactions, put it bluntly: insects are nature's sanitation crew. They are drawn to weak, mineral-deficient plants, especially those with low Brix readings. The science is simple, but brutal. Insects do not have livers. They cannot process complex sugars or the defensive compounds that healthy, mineral-rich plants create. When a plant is loaded with minerals, copper, zinc, magnesium, silica, its chemistry shifts. Sugars become more complex, cell walls thicken, and the plant's natural defenses snap into place. Aphids, whiteflies, and beetles land, taste, and move on. They are looking for easy prey, not a fortress. Field trials and grower reports have put numbers to this theory. In New Zealand, one tomato grower saw aphid populations drop by 80% after a single application of basalt dust. No sprays, no traps, just minerals. The pattern holds across climates. In the Midwest, potatoes treated with azomite rock powder saw Brix readings jump from 4 to 12 in a single season. The result was 0 pesticides, and not a single leaf chewed. These are not isolated miracles. Across orchards, vineyards, and backyard beds, the same story repeats: high Brix, low pests. The refractometer does not lie, and neither do the empty traps. The protocol is almost laughably simple. Basalt dust, azomite, or glacial rock powder, all are loaded with 70 to 90 trace minerals. There is no mixing, no math. Just take a handful and sprinkle it over the soil, the way you would dust sugar over a donut. That is it. Rain and microbes do the rest, slowly unlocking the minerals over months and years. One application lasts 3 to 5 years. While NPK vanishes with the first rain, rock dust lingers, feeding the soil microbiome and building a mineral reserve that plants can draw from season after season. Sourcing is straightforward. Basalt dust comes from volcanic quarries. Azomite from ancient mineral beds in Utah. Both are available through farm co-ops, garden centers, or online. There are no patents, no proprietary blends, just the raw code of the planet, ground fine, and ready for use. The only thing missing is the recurring bill. Once the minerals are in place, the soil runs on its own. The subscription model collapses. The proof is in the field: healthy plants, clean leaves, and the silence of insects looking elsewhere. Today, over 90% of American farmland relies on synthetic fertilizers that strip soils of vital minerals, while chronic diseases linked to nutrient deficiencies continue to climb. As food loses its substance, the real battle is not just over crops, but control of our health. The question now: will we keep buying the illusion, or reclaim the code that nature never forgot? Your next meal is your answer. Drop your perspective below.